We greatly appreciate everyone making time in busy schedules to come on out so we can recognize a number of students who have taken the initiative to students and programs to develop some STEM projects. And a couple things, housekeeping items, bathroom are out the door if anyone needs them. Food obviously is in the back of the room. We would encourage you to get up and help yourself to food throughout the evening. If you don't, then my kids are eating sandwiches for the next week. So if you can do that, that'd be greatly appreciated. First of all, I'd like to ask the STEM board to stand up. We have a board of 13. Starting over here to my left is Jerry Herrera. The three on the back wall, there's been some discipline issues, so we've had to place them back there. But Cindy Bernier, Elena Westcombe, and Mike Stern. Cindy works for, let me back up. Jerry works for Med Associates in Greenmount, Catamount Research in Georgia. Cindy works for Superior Technical Ceramics. Elena works for UVM Medical Center. Former Miss Vermont. Mike Stern works for Violin Technologies. We have Steve McKenzie here in front of me, who's many of you may know as a science teacher at NVU. Jim Naylor is at the Northwest Tech Center as a co-op teacher. We have Jackie Hood, who is our legal knowledge, and she's a lawyer based out of Vermont, California. And then we have Lise McDonald, who is recently retired, but has worked in the nonprofit sector and for UVM. And at UVM over the years. And then we have Marilyn Grunwald, who used to be the superintendent for this region and recently retired. I say recently, but how many years now?
Almost 9 years.
Has it been that long? Boy. I don't think I've missed anyone. So the board, and missing tonight is Tariq Poitier from also works at Superior, and then Jeff Benet, who works with the Abenaki Association as well. So that's our board. And Eric Buell, who is on medical leave and is having some operations done in New York, so he's unable to be with us today. Eric lives in the islands and used to be the director of the Vermont Forensics Center. So we have a good balance. It's a great board. You guys, if you can remain standing to the end of the presentation, that'd be great. I'll give them a round of applause. So just a quick history of how we got here. The board, a number of us came together in hopes of having a Challenger Learning Center, and over a lot of deliberation and scrutiny, we chose not to go down that route. And we had received a lot of financial support over the years, and we chose to redirect that support into what we're doing now, which is soliciting applications for STEM projects and awarding small grants in hopes of initiating those projects and getting them off the ground. The projects can be, our guidelines for the money can be a variety of different things. They may be for projects, as I said, and you'll hear about some now. Money may go towards teacher education, so they can go out and learn about new STEM initiatives and then bring it back to the classroom. And then we also, we really want to get the word out, is if there are students out there who want to attend a STEM-related summer camp, we have funds to help offset some of that cost. We're not going to pay for the full cost of any of the projects or the camps or the education, but we can be a big piece of that to inspire those to go out and do it. So we're excited. We've already had 2 funding cycles for this year. of which we had, I think we had 6 in the first cycle, and we had 7 applications in the second. So the word is getting out. The ones we funded in the January cycle, we are funding a program in Fairfax, Ridgeford, South Bureau, and BFA Tech Center. So we have a good balance throughout the 2-county area, and we also funded the MBU Science Fair this winter to assist with some prizes for the winners there. So that's an overview about where we're at. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of the board members here tonight. We look forward to getting the word out, continue to get the word out. We're looking forward to an exciting night tonight and hearing from all the different projects. And so you each have a program on your table, and we're going to mix it up a little bit, so this doesn't necessarily have the route we're going to follow, but we're going to start out with updates from the past challenge grant recipients. It will be Carol Lazat and Richard Ballard coming up, and before they go and talk about the aviation camp and the summer maker fair, Rich is going to talk about the MBU Science Fair, and we have a couple of the winning projects here. So, Rich, if you want to come up.
So I'm going to introduce, we got 2 of our top projects, and I'm going to show a couple of the things from. So here is, let me just get this up and running. Didn't have this in the right order, so I don't want to go from the beginning. All right. Is this little poker going to work? Okay, it is. So we're very fortunate to have Elena there at our local science fair. That was really kind of her to come and speak and also be a judge. But we also had a lot of fantastic projects. And our first place winner is here to talk a little bit about it. And that he's going to talk about his project, which basically he won an engineering prize. It was the prize for exemplifying engineering principles. And I believe it was a $200 prize, and he won down at the state fair, along with being first place at our local fair. So he did a really good job of representing MBU this year. So I'm going to let Aiden come on up and just show you his project briefly and talk just a little bit about what he did. So Aiden.
My name is Aiden Murphy, and my project depended greatly on the study of practice in my case. My question was generally testing if hollow columns made with the school's 3D printer with a practical design, such as the you're not going to be able to see very well, but it's the 3 in front here, the 3 blue ones, and seeing if they would be any better than the regular or non-fractalized hollow columns. And so the ones in gray, brown, whatever you want to call it, maybe a little easier to see, was my first test. And my first test was conducted at my school in the weight room. And I was just stacking weights on top of it, which isn't very accurate. And so after the first test happened, which is what that poster was for, I had some time between the end of the state fair and the end of the school fair and the beginning of the state fair to get my results a little more accurate. So we reprinted, thanks to Valerie, and had a meeting with STC to present it here. And thank you very much for your cooperation with that. So my results at the end of the first test had ranged from 65 pounds with the fractal columns up to 325 pounds for the non-fractal columns. So it wasn't looking very good for me, for my case, because I thought the fractal columns would win out. But at the end of the STC test, I was watching the press be used. And
Is the insurance making you say that?
And I got a lot higher numbers, ranging from, my lowest was the triangle fractal tower, and again, viewing is not great, but that's what it looks like. And it held 441.06 pounds. My highest, technically, were 2 because the machine topped out. With these two, they're both cylindrical. One is fractalized, but this one and the other is not. They both held over 1,000 pounds. But when it comes down to it, the question is which tower is better, fractal versus non-fractal? And if we're going by, you can kind of picture this unit price, but the PSI, pounds per square inch, the fractals actually won out. If we're going by how much each tower can actually hold, just top-down weight, the non-fractal towers won out. So I'm going to go ahead and say PSI and say fractals won, but that's just my opinion.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll jump past Savannah, who didn't make it tonight, but she was one of the finalists. She won at the State Fair. She won the Intel Science Talent Search, as well as she got second, or honorable mention for the Society of Women Engineering. But we have here tonight the person who got first place from the Society of Women Engineering, and that is Emma Meador. So I'm going to have Emma get up and try to talk nice and loud. She's very nervous, I know, but she'll do great. And she did hers on the Wheatstone Bridge. So I'm going to tell them a little bit about what she did.
So basically what my project, the goal of my project was to find the different resistances of the different types of wire. To see which was the most resistive, the least resistive. I used a couple different types of wire, like some tungsten wire, nickel silver wire, titanium wire, copper wire, types of wire like that. And what the device I used to find the resistance besides just verifying it with a multimeter was some bridge circuit, which basically helps through the use of a potentiometer to change the. So there's basically 4 different resistors involved in the circuit, and the potentiometer is the one that changes across it. That helps find the value, which. Okay, I'm going to start over.
You're fine.
So through the circuit, there are 2 node resistances, R1 and R2. And the Wheatstone Bridge circuit basically consists of 2 voltage dividers. So we know that the 4th resistance is the unknown resistance, and that would be what the wire is. The potentiometer is used to adjust it to make the resistance throughout the circuit equal across both voltage dividers. So do that through turning the potentiometer, which adjusts the resistance, we're able to create an equation that helps us find the resistance of the wire. Unfortunately, there were differences between what the multimeter, which I used to verify what I got from the circuit, and what I got from the circuit, calculated from the circuit. But overall, I was able to say that probably the most resistive of the materials was the nickel silver wire, and the most, or the least resistive was nichrome wire. However, like I said, there were some minor differences which could be due to problems in the circuit, like small resistances through the wires and such. But one member from the Society of Women Engineers pointed out that basically what my project did could easily be looked up on the internet now, but I really wanted to use this as a basis for further applications to electrical engineering and science for more projects. So hopefully I'll be able to knowledge I gained from using the Wheatstone Bridge circuit and what I more applicable to things that are actually, that we need to find out or that we don't already know. So that's my goal here. Thank you.
Just mention one more person who won a prize at the States this year, and she's not able to be here tonight, but Jenna Bordeaux. She got this outstanding achievement for in vitro biology with her project, and so she did a really nice project, and that was really a good job. We do want to thank the STEM Initiative for helping to fund this. It really helps to have the kids. You know, we were able to provide prizes for the kids. We were able to provide the trip down to the state fair. You know, because of all this funding. We were able to buy things for the kids that needed stuff. And we've been able to buy like radar guns, and we bought this year it's a, what was that thing called? But basically it measures brain waves, right? And very interesting device. And we had one student that did a project using that, and so that was a really neat thing. We bought a few other things just to be able to help. So it's really good to have the support of this group to help us out in providing the equipment so kids can do experiments that are even a little above and beyond. So I don't know if you want to have Carol come up and talk. Yeah. So why don't you go and I'll pick back up with with my kid. I got some stuff up here, but I'll get back up to that.
All right. My name is Carol Rosat. I'm the Franklin Northwest Supervisory Union's After School Summer Programs Director. We have, as part of our after-school programs in summer, the goal of providing more opportunities in STEM for students to have hands-on exposure and activities in STEM activities. Sorry. So we have this past summer we did the Maker Camp, and we did it the year before. Actually, we have Rich Ballard was instructing it last year. This summer we have another science teacher who's going to run that for us. We have a lot of STEM activities that we have coming up that we're pretty excited about at FDU. We have an aviation camp. We can reach out to community partners, and with this and with funding from like a STEM grant, we can offer things like we have an aviation camp, the Maker Camp. We're going to actually have a variety of guests. We have a speaker building and Jim?
Let's see, we'll have speaker building, we'll have some EV solar car challenges, and a little microbiology with pond water, and what else we can have? Oh yeah, hot dogs, solar thermal, and EVs. So we'll have a EV alternative energy unit as well.
Yeah, so we've got a variety of things happening this summer. And something that I was made aware that we were awarded this grant. We have a partnership with the Vermont After Schooling, and we are going to be one of 7 high schools that will be implementing this new training teams to do STEM classes, and we're going to pay them to work in our elementary school after-school program. So that is really exciting. It's a way we can personalize learning for students where they can get actually career exposure to things that they can do in life and in their careers. So anyway, so we have a lot going on, and Rich is a big part of this too.
Thanks. So I'm going to show, because I taught the camp last year, and we do have a couple of our students from last year, and they're going to stand up and talk for an hour. Right, Summer? Wake up. This is Summer and her brother Nick, who were both part of the summer camp this year. Summer has been part of it for the last 2 years, so thank you guys. You'll see them up in the pictures and the videos I'm going to show real quick here. Do you guys want to say anything about your time in the summer camp? I didn't think so. I was feeling they were going to pop out. But we'll let the pictures do the talking. So thank you guys, though, for doing that. So this is a short video I put together today just to kind of show everything that was going on. Let's see if it plays. And actually, we have sound. So basically, what you saw there was a quick review of some of the projects. The biggest project that we worked on was this little bot that they made called Sprout, and you saw that being made. And that just was a very challenging project for these guys. And it was exciting because every single one of them got their bot. So those last few pictures were just their, even if they didn't get it all to the final project and all colored and everything else, they got their bots to work. And that was exciting, and I was very impressed with how much they pushed and persisted to get that done, because there's a lot of, there's circuits in there, there's lights in there, LEDs, there's all kinds of things. And just, you saw how, many wires are just kind of sticking out all over the place. They had to put all those together, and so it was pretty impressive to see. But, they did a little bit of 3D, we did some 3D, working on a 3D printer, and then our 3D printer decided that to work for us. So they did design some things, but that little bot was really neat. We also made you saw the little paper circuits that they made, but we turned them into a little helicopter. So that was kind of a fun thing. So the whole thing was really an interesting project, and you can see what the kids were doing. We had a really good week that week, and I think that was pretty much everything I had on here. Yeah. So.
Thank you, Rich. Summer will leave that up there for
the rest of the night.
Couple things Rich reminded me of is when we make a contribution to a project, we try to avoid the one and done scenarios where maybe we might pay for a speaker to come in one day and that's it. So we try to invest in things that are going to be used year after year and class after class. And Rich reminded me that they were able to buy a radar gun. So if you go at MU now, it's at work in a parking lot. If you're going too fast, you get pulled over and you get a ticket. Not really. A couple things I want to also mention. And I want to reinforce it throughout the night. One is, these are some photos from prior years. Feel free to look at the science fair demonstrations or poster boards. But feel free to get up and look at these throughout the night. It gives you a good indication of what's been done in the past. The other thing, which I feel to touch on, is that In Franklin County right now, we're very fortunate to have the businesses that we do and their involvement in the schools. You've heard about Superior Technical Ceramics here. They've been active at BFA and MDU, Mining Technologies, Techno Apex. We have a number of manufacturers that do a wonderful job of interacting with our students and our schools on a number of different projects. So I'd just like to give a shout out to those because as you heard on the earlier presentation, it makes a big difference to have that support from our businesses. The other piece, and we're gonna harp on this throughout the night as well, is that you know, we're here to really send a message that even though the students are from, and our upcoming students are from small towns in Franklin County, they can make great things happen. We heard it last year with Mike Moreau. We're going to hear it this year with Tim Hunter. Tim was raised in Albert, went to MDU. Mike Moreau last year was from Woods Hill Road and is working for NASA now. So what we want to really encourage the students is that anything's possible. Just because you're from a small town doesn't mean you can't make big things happen. And for me, the story I thought of, when I first went to college my first year, I was at New Hampshire College, and I'm going to date myself a little bit because New Hampshire College is no longer. It's now University of Southern New Hampshire. And we were put into our English class, and the first thing they told us was that everyone would have to take a writing test to see if we had to go back and do remedial English, because I guess in the past the writing skills were limited. And I thought, because I came from St. Albans, Vermont, went to BFA, that I for sure would not be able to compete against fellow students from New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut. And it was an actual surprise to me to find out that myself and my roommate, also from St. Albans, were one of a few of the class that actually did not have to go on to take the remedial writing class. It was a big eye-opener because I thought for sure that was going to be the case. And it was actually all those bums from New Jersey and New York that had to take a remedial class. But and that's a message I'd like to send to the students here, is that, you know, don't feel that you cannot compete, because we have seen where you can, and that you will continue to be able to compete as you move on to higher education. And we're going to hear that again later tonight. So that's a message we want to make sure is sent home loud and clear. We're going to, each year, that's the emphasis of our speaker, we're going to be bringing in speakers to talk about how they grew up here, what the impact was, who impacted their direction in life in terms of science, and we just want to make sure our kids and students know that. So, is Lisa here? Lisa Kaminsky? No?
She was making
Okay. Christine, I know you're here. Do you want to come on up? Christine received a grant last year from Swan Elementary. It was a grant research on solar panels. So Christine is here. I'll let you get set up. And with Christine are Derek Hodgson and Egan Murphy. And they'll be talking about their research project relative to solar panels last year at Swan Elementary School. While we're waiting for Christine to set up, just a couple things on STEM education. I had to do a presentation. I was on a board presentation at the Tech Center, which you're going to hear about later. as well, but some of the research I had done was if you're a high school graduate and you end up in the STEM field, your rate of pay is about 49% higher than traditional jobs. If you're a college graduate and you're in a STEM field, your rate of pay is approximately 30% higher than a college graduate who's not in the STEM field. And then on a master's level, it's about 22% higher for a STEM field versus a non-STEM field. So it gives you an indication of what the need is and what the demand is relative to jobs in the STEM field. So Christine, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm Christine Cady. I teach 6th grade at the Swanton Central School. And the two gentlemen who are with me were my students last year. We spent the first part of the year looking at a solar panel project and realized that we would really love to have some solar kits to be able to do some testing and some work with. So I put together a grant knowing that the NGSS curriculum really is pushing kids to actually have a lot of hands-on experience and inquiry. So we were able to get 10 solar panel kits for our school to be able to use. So that kind of kept these guys going. And because we got those towards the end of the school year, they have continued to come and work with me throughout this year as well. So it shows dedication through a lot of trial and error. So we've got a presentation that they'd like to share with some of the learning that they've done. I want to thank the generosity of everybody for those kits. We're a tiny school in reference to larger schools, but our science program is growing huge. So I get to see some of my former students who are doing some amazing things at the high school level, and I'm kind of hoping that maybe just a little spark of it starting at the elementary. So thank you.
My name is Derek Washington. I'm a 7th grader and I go to Missisquoi Valley Union High School.
I am Egan Murphy. I am a 7th grader and also go to MVU.
Our goal, to learn more about solar panels, to see if our school can support solar panels, and maybe to get solar panels. So during the daytime, the solar panels get power from the sun and go to the battery, and at nighttime, you run off the grid.
Why are we doing this? We are doing this because we want to make the environment cleaner. We also want to not give up as much CO2. Additionally, we want to save money for our school.
Our steps, thought about why we should choose solar panels.
Looked at solar panels to get an idea of them.
Figure out how much power the central building uses.
Made a copy of the original blueprint of the central building.
Measure the actual height of the walls to construct the model walls.
Put an imprint of where the walls are going to go.
Put the walls in.
And hot glue them down.
Made measurements of the actual roof to make the roofs to scale.
Made rafters for the cafeteria roof since the roof is too heavy.
Looked at solar panels online to find the measurements for the solar panels.
Made the solar panels with black paper and bubble wrap.
Painted the grass green and the walls red.
And we do have the model here of the work that they did.
The central building uses 35,040 kilowatts per hour monthly. On the graph, bottom right, or left, the annual consumption is the monthly of the central building.
Based on these calculations, the central building can produce an average of 10,813 kilowatts an hour a year of energy from the sun.
How did we use the kits? We created and tested solar cars. We learned it needed to be really sunny to run them. The solar panels weighed more than the cars could handle, and increasing the size of the car meant increasing the number of panels.
We tested the amount of energy takes to light the Christmas lights. We could power one bulb with two 1.5 volt solar panels. We could light 3 bulbs with a 6 AA batteries. A whole strand was impossible.
What we learned. Limited roof space resulted in limited amount of power able to be produced.
Consumption drastically higher than production.
The cost of installation was too high for the limited amount of energy produced.
We would need other sources of renewable energy to meet the school needs.
Our conclusion was that we had to conserve the energy.
The team.
So these guys actually went out and measured the height of the walls outside of our building, and we had received a blueprint. And to make life a little more challenging, because I really believe in STEM, they had to do all the calculations to take the measurements from the blueprint to put it to scale by doing all the conversions, which Mr. Murphy enjoyed greatly. So, and all Derek wanted to do was just build it. So just tell him what he needed to do. So it really was a demonstration of teamwork. There were several other students that would take part, but I really got to hand it to these guys. They stuck with it from the very beginning to the end, and that's kind of what engineering is. Not giving up. So they're really good examples of that. Thanks.
For those who may not have been with us last year, Christine was our first Mary Babcock Award recipient for STEM education. And so it's great to have Christine back and present a project like this. The other thing I would share is that we talk about it on the board meetings that not only are we hearing about the STEM, but the students are doing a great job of public speaking and participating. A lot of them, maybe their first experience. Emily did a wonderful job. And this just starts that ball rolling to refine those skills on public speaking. So it's great to see. Our next presentation is a Franklin Grandel bookmobile, and that would be Olivia Kotoski and Brianna Brady. For those who may not interact with the bookmobile much, these ladies have been very engaged in the bookmobile and done a wonderful job in promoting it and getting the word out about it. Give me just a second. So what I would encourage people here to do is to share, spread the word if you could about our grants that are offered. Our information can be found at scidt.org. And spread the word. If you know individuals who are looking to go to camp this summer, it'd be a great opportunity. So Brianna, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi. We have to apologize. We're both AmeriCorps members at Bookmobile, and the nature of AmeriCorps is that it switches over every year, so neither one of us implemented this grant, so our depth of knowledge is not large, but we're going to do the best we can.
We have some great pictures, so that's helpful.
So the challenge initiative was applied for and implemented by us in partnership with the Franklin Northwest Supervisory Union after school and summer programs. And it helped us to enlighten children by helping them to understand our own sources of water and how we can enact plans for the betterment of the world in relation to those sources. So you can see how we brought those information right back home to their site garden at the school. And they improved it. The program that we do in Franklin during the summer is called the Franklin Academy. So it was a wonderful time of discovery and summer fun happening on, and with the help of the Challenge Initiative off the Franklin Elementary School site. We can show you just one lesson and one activity from Water Week, in which students learned that local efforts make a difference in the availability of water now and in the future. So understanding water scarcity is not a familiar concept for children in Franklin. especially this week with all the rain. But it's, you know, it's good to understand about the differences in climate and where we are and how we get water. So, we started Water Week with a lesson to demonstrate how water is not available everywhere in the world, as it is here. Scarcity and abundance of water in different climates is a result of many different factors. In this activity, students went through 3 stations in order to experience the causes and effects of water scarcity. Those stations were water abundance, physical scarcity, and economic situation. In water abundance, students saw their water bottle, symbolic of their population, overflowing into a bowl with little effort and quite early on. In physical scarcity, required students to rank the segments of their population, agriculture, industry, and human, according to their importance. They then must decide who receives what portion of the limited resource, water. In economic situation, gave students a scenario in which they technically had enough water, but they could not easily access it. The clean water that is within reach is sealed and they are prohibited from using it, while the resource that they are permitted to use is far away on the other side of the room and dirty.
Oops, sorry.
So we took them out to Lake Carmine. Carmine? I'm not from here. Carmine? Carmine.
Oh, okay.
And so what they did out there is they compared the abundance of water there to water scarcity somewhere else, and getting the grant allowed us to take them places like Lake Carmine, and they found out about where the water originates and from there, which is at the top of the mountain. And the Franklin watershed experts explained how Lake Carmine and the Rock River connect to the basin, and they were really excited because they got to look at maps and figure out waterways and Lake Champlain and talk about it in their own community. And they explored the maps, and they were challenged to create their own maps of water sources and basins and write their own sort of cautionary tales about water scarcity and abundance. I'm going to hand this over to Olivia.
All right, I'll trade you. Okay, so like with any summer program, we tried to spend as much time outside as possible. And water continued to be a topic of discussion as we visited different places and as we reflected on our investigations. So we went to Carmen Brook Farm, the Missisquoi Refuge, and then we brought it all home to the Franklin School Garden. These trips were really valuable, both for fun and for the educational lessons that they brought. So on our trip to Carmen Brook Farm, we talked a lot about the ecological footprint of the dairy industry, including water usage, and we got some pretty cool opportunities to explore a bunch of caves as well. And then we brought it home to Franklin Elementary School, where visiting and discovering different things really motivated our students to make things better in the garden. We did a project making a tippy tap using principles of physics and engineering to build a contraption that helped to water the garden, exercising their math skills while also making them aware of just how difficult sometimes accessing water can be. It turns out digging the holes was the most difficult part. Who knew that the ground could be so tough? And it was quite a project in the heat of the summer. Digging and setting the posts is pretty hard work, but everybody stayed with it and got it done. Students had a real understanding of water scarcity from the previous lesson, but from making the tippy tap, they then really fully understood, I think, how a simple everyday task like washing hands can be precious and difficult for those without water security. Several students actually said that they appreciate the ability to turn on a tap and wash their hands easily at school or at home. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. So those were an overview of the projects that we funded last year. We awarded grants for back in January for awards for this year, and we'll start with those The first one we'd like to ask to come up is Samantha Cantel, Folsom Education Community Center from the Grand Isle Supervisory Union, and it was STEM in the classroom. I'm being put under pressure because they all have thumb drives, so I have to kill time that I'm not prepared for. I don't know if I have any jokes that are, I'd have to think. Maybe I should stay away from those, I don't know. But once again, for those who don't know, our board meets monthly, and we've talked about this before. We're very fortunate to have a group of 13 individuals who came together as acquaintances, but over the time have really become good friends. And this makes events like this real enjoyable to be able to do this with the friends you've created over time. And I would encourage, as openings arise on our board, that if you're interested, to please reach out to us and express your interest in joining us. Right now, I'll turn it over to Sam. Thank you, Sam.
Hello. So I bought some spheros for my classroom, and now I can't get my students to go back to regular content now that I've introduced these little buggers into my classroom. So someone just told me to stop talking because I'm in love with them, and my students are in love with them, and my friends are sick of hearing about these guys. The first thing, we're using them in both math and science to help teach regular content. I'm using them to teach physics, Newton's laws, and speed. Normally we have them do race cars, like pushing race cars or balloon cars, and I was like, why don't we use the spheros? So here are some pictures of some students timing the spheros going down the hallway. Also, anytime you get to roll robots down the hallway and call it science, the students are all automatically intrigued. In the math, students are using it to use angles and coordinate planes, and students are excited to come in from recess and go straight to math class, a concept that my math teacher is like thanking me for. So students are learning how to block or use block coding, very similar to our code, and they're having a blast with it, and there's some learning curve with it, and we're working through it. These are some pictures of students just working with their block coding, and then I'm trying to keep this short, but students, we had to do a chariot design, so we had to create a device to carry a stuffed animal. This particular group had a Lorax to carry around. They have a track duct taped to my floor right now, and they have to carry this Lorax around the track, and they have to program the Sphero to carry this device around. And there's a certain amount of points that they have to get, and if they knock over, then they get deducted points and so on and so forth. They only have a certain amount of supplies and stuff like that. So they're like working together. This is just one example. I have one that's using CDs. They think it's funny using technology from the 2000s. Currently in 5th grade, we're using, we're doing student negotiating engineering. I said we can use the spheros. However, you guys have to pick how you're going to get graded, how you're going to be marked successful, and what you're going to build. So the spheros can go in water, and they're testing it. So they're creating race boats with the spheros. I got to figure out how to put a kiddie pool in my classroom, but details. That's what they're working on right now, and the students are working on negotiating that and working together to figure out how it's working. And I'm seeing some really strong leadership opportunities, and they're working together, and the Spheros are making that happen, and I got 100% buy-in with the students right now. So far, they're working on block coding. My next step is to introduce script coding, but baby steps. Right now we're centered in Folsom. Next year I'm going to do some professional development with the other science teachers in the SU, and we're going to do it's going to be like a loan system so that each school and the islands get to use these robots so that everyone in the islands can have this opportunity. But right now I'm just piloting the system so we can get a good system worked out. And then the 5-8 students are going to teach the K4 students how to use this system so that way they would get that STEM mentoring relationships. Because right now the K4 students are bugging me on when they get to use the robots. And I can't teach all of them. This is just a word cloud of all the students who replied because I couldn't bring any of them with me because right now they're singing in the rain, literally in the musical production. So right now they like it, they think it's fun. I think the word cloud speaks for itself. That's all I got.
While Sam was talking, I did think of my joke. And if you're familiar with this, don't leave me hanging on this. But Pete and Repeat were in a boat. Pete fell out. Who was left? Anyone?
Who wants to say it?
Repeat. Pete and Repeat were in a boat. Pete fell out. Who was left? Pete and Repeat were in a boat. My kids are sick of that one. It doesn't go too far anymore. Our next project, I'm going to ask Ian Foster to come up from the Northwest Technical Center to talk about the Tech and Engineering Day they did. That was a huge success. The other one would be 3 horses in a barn, 2 left. How many left? No, 2 left. 3 horses in a barn, 1 left. How many were left? Okay. Thank you, Doug, for entertaining me.
Good evening, everyone. So, just about this time last month, Northwest Technical Center and BFA St. Albans paid host to over 160 middle school students from 5 different middle schools from around Franklin, just Franklin County. Thank you. It was a great success. It's called Tech and Engineering Day. It was a technology and engineering competition for middle school students from Franklin County and neighboring communities. So here are the middle school students. They're just arrived, and many of our tech and engineering programs at Northwest Technical Center started off the day by welcoming and presenting their Ruth Goldberg projects to the middle schoolers. I'm going to invite Mr. Douglas Bell to talk a bit about that, and also Kaylin Hathaway, who is a student at Northwest Technical Center as well.
Hi, I want to give a little bit of background. Anne's only been with us about 2 months, so we dumped this project in her lap, and then said, "Okay, brother." What we did was, we kind of took this over from UVM. UVM used to have their, I don't remember what they called it, but it was a time when they would invite middle school students to come to a statewide competition. A few years ago, they chose not to do it. And a few of the teachers within the district approached me, and I approached our outreach coordinator, and we, the next year, were able to offer the Tech and Engineering Day. It's been a really big success. I think we had, 50 or 60 more students show up than we expected this year. It's kind of interesting. The Rube Goldberg device you've seen here is actually the culmination of a project that myself and 2 of my colleagues do. The digital arts teacher and myself get together, and we do a collaborative project every year. We've developed games and other things using the digital arts skills and the engineering skills from my students. And it's a really cool opportunity, and it's an opportunity to work with my colleagues in a completely different way. And it's a really cool opportunity for the students to be able to see the strengths of their classmates and also the weaknesses, and develop some really interesting communication problems and try to solve them. Not successfully always. I would say 20% of the time. But what we did was we set the Rube Goldberg was their project this year. It was a kind of neat, cool for this year because our students, or my students, were kind of the lead in the project. In the past, it's been more of an art project with engineering components, and this was an engineering component with artistic input, and it was kind of an interesting turnaround. Kaylin, I found out about needing to bring a student this afternoon about 1:30, and Kaylin was available. And the reason he's here is because he's in my afternoon class, which didn't participate in the project, but he's also at halftime in my morning class, and so he observed the project. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Sure. Yeah. So I wasn't not a full-time student, but I did get to observe the project that was taking place in the classroom because they spread out across like 3-4 rooms. And I got to observe them in their struggle to make the project. And it looked very fun, if not very hard. And I did end up helping in the end because not a lot of people showed up the day before. And it was very interesting. I saw lots of conflict and how it was resolved. Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, it was a really successful experience, I think, overall. Both the collaborative project and the Tech and Engineering Day is really awesome. The students come in, how many different competitions were there?
I believe it was 12 altogether.
I think there are 12 competitions. They happen all over BFA. We have BFA teachers involved. We have tech center teachers involved. We use different spaces. It's just a really, really neat experience to be able to bring these kids into the space and let them see the engineering programs projects my students work with. Rich is there always, and that's awesome. It's really fun to see my colleagues from other schools as well. I mean, it's a huge opportunity for everybody. I'm not sure what else there's to say.
So I wanted to take you through the day of the life of the middle schooler on that day. So you saw the Rube Goldberg projects, and then after the Rube Goldberg projects, all the students went down to the Performing Arts Center, and they got a chance to hear from both middle and high school level scientists talking about everything from their award-winning engineering to their science designs. We heard about blue algae. We heard about circuit making. It was a wonderful presentation from some great young folks. And then we got into the competition part of the day. So the students broke off and worked in teams in all kinds of different competitions. They worked in application design, like there's an app for that on your smartphone. They worked in bridge construction. They worked in material design. They worked in package design. And some of the students chose their teams and some of them didn't. And they were all really engaged all day long. It was, if you work with middle schoolers, you know that they do fatigue after about lunch. And they were fed lunch at Northwest Tech, but after lunch, there was zero fatigue. They were so excited to keep going on with the day. And so you can see this group, their building was spaghetti noodles and mini marshmallows. That was building construction.
Oh.
The gentleman in the lime green polo shirt might look familiar.
I didn't recognize myself.
Here is bridge construction. This is toy design. So these students actually designed and built toys. And this was an edible car. This is a lot of fun. You can see the young lady there with her zucchini mobile. And then the race over there to the left. And then at the end of the day, we cap things out with awards. And one of the great things that I heard from a lot of students who maybe didn't place at all, was that they had so much fun and they learned so much that day that it was just such a great experience to be engaged in science, technology, and engineering all day. So a huge thank you to the STEM Challenge Initiative for helping make this wonderful day happen.
So folks, we got So I just want to point out, I think I mentioned to you earlier that I participated on the panel for the Tech Day, and this is me right over here. I need to prompt, if I'm going to participate in it, I'm going to need to prompt the presenters that I need a little more airtime and not be on the wall. But that is me. It doesn't look like me, but it's me. The next presentation I'd like to ask to come up is Sarah King from Richard Elementary School regarding magnet design. And I have to fill more time. All set? Yeah. Oh, perfect. Love it.
These are early.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, I'm Sarah King. I'm a teacher at Richard Elementary School. I teach 3rd grade, and we've been working on a project using magnets. So there were kind of 2 major components to this project. The first thing was just learning about magnets and what they can do, and kind of giving the kids some familiarity with what magnets do. And then the second part of the project was to design and build projects using magnets. This design right here was one that I don't think we're going to have a chance to build. It was quite complex. I think it had to do with trying to retrieve clothes. But that was one of the ideas. So there were some important magnet concepts that I wanted kids to get. There were kind of 4 main ideas. So that magnets push and pull, that they work through other materials, that magnets can be strong despite limited size, and that magnets are attracted to most metals, but not all metals. And so then the kids had the chance to come up with different design solutions. And this was one of the thoughts, was that we could use magnets to keep shoes on the shoe rack. Lots of kids in my class had organizational issues, and so they were thinking of solutions to those problems. Pencils are always an issue in elementary classrooms, and who gets which pencils, and are there enough pencils, and why are the pencils always on the floor? So that was a solution. These kids don't like hanging their shoes for basketball. And one of my favorite parts of this project so far has been having the kids write project proposals. And just the idea of really needing to prove to someone else that your project is going to work, and that you have a way to kind of work through difficulties. And so there was a lot of writing a justification of why their projects would work, writing diagrams, and then creating their own budgets for these projects. So one of the things that this grant has allowed us to do is that I told the kids right at the beginning of the project, after you do your proposals, some of you will get funding. And so that was a huge motivator for kids, that they would actually be able to buy stuff to make their stuff work. So they've been in the process of doing that over the last couple of weeks. And actually just this Friday they had their final project proposals due, and these are some of the projects that they're going to be building. So a magnetic visor, because one of the kids, his dirt bike helmet is always losing its, or sometimes doesn't want the visor on there, so he's going to have a removable visor. A magnetic baby blanket, so that the baby doesn't unwrap out of its blanket. Magnetic pencils, magnetic hook for organizing wires, magnetic shoes, and magnetic sweatshirts. So the kids who got funding are now going to be gathering teams of classmates. so that kids who didn't get funding on their projects will kind of be able to jump in on one of the projects that did get funding. So the kind of sustainable part of this project is that we bought a lot of magnet materials for the kids to use as they're learning about magnets. And so those will be in the classroom, and as we're starting to implement next generation science standards, magnets become really important in third grade. And so it was nice to be able to kind of build up that supply of materials for kids to use. And then specifically this year, just letting the kids have the opportunity to have these design projects that they'll actually now have the funding to build. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. You know, it's interesting to see that the grants that we've awarded, they cover the whole spectrum in terms of the school system. We've heard second and third grade all the way up through high school. And that's exactly what the board's looking for, is to have that diversity, not only in location that we talked about earlier. You know, we've seen South Hero, Richford. Next year in your program, you'll see that we've already awarded 3 additional grants for next year that we'll be presenting at next year's banquet, and that is Fairfield Center School, MBU, the summer program again at Franklin Northwest, and then BFA St. Albans. So we're meeting our goals as a board in getting the diversification, and not only in age group, but in geography as well. So we're excited about those moving forward. It's now my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker. Our guest speaker is Tim Hunter, who some of you may know. Tim grew up on a dairy farm in Albert in Grand Isle County. He attended Missisquoi Valley Union High School, where he graduated in 1979. For those who don't know, I'm much older than Tim. I graduated in 78. The 70s were a good year. Good years, I should say. Tim graduated with honors and a passion to pursue an education in life sciences. He attended McGill University in SUNY Plattsburgh, where he graduated in 1983 in a BS in biology and a minor in chemistry. In 1985, he accepted a laboratory research technician position at the University of Vermont Genetics Lab. In 1996, he helped establish new sequencing core laboratory for the UVM Cancer Center, and he currently serves as the director of the Advanced Genome Technology Core at UVM. He's been an active member in the core laboratory community, having served on boards, including the Association of Molecular, that's easy for me to say, resource facilities. He's developed a user educational course seminar series at UVM and has assisted in the development of biotechnology courses with outreach to 10 academic institutes. So with that, I'll introduce Tim, and thank you for making the trip, and we greatly appreciate it.
I'm going to put the speaker over here, and if someone can't hear me, tell me. But I got to tell you, I've never been told to speak up. I've actually been told to quiet down a little bit. So again, my name's Tim Hunter, and I want to thank Tim and Eric Buell, who unfortunately can't be here tonight, to invite me to come here and hopefully inspire some of the younger students to think about pursuing a STEM career. And you notice I titled this talk, Life in the STEM Lane. And I did that for 2 reasons. One is I'm hoping to describe my roadmap, what I followed to the career that I have and the job I have right now. And the second reason is I did go to school in the 70s. I was an Eagles fan, and some of you may have heard of that song, Life in the Fast Lane. So currently I serve as the director of the Advanced Genome Technologies Core, and it really is an overarching umbrella for 3 distinct laboratories. I'm certainly not going to mention any of those words. I won't be saying biomolecular or anything like that, but what I want you to know is that it's really incredible what we can do today in laboratories. We can slice, dice, analyze, identify, quantify, profile DNA, nucleic acid, any of the genetic material that is present. And so, as I had said, I want to kind of walk you through, from where I started, where I was raised or reared, to where I am today. So you can see that I grew up on where that red X is on the Canadian border in Alberg. That's where I grew up on a large dairy farm. I was the 8th of 10 children. I don't know if you can recognize me. If you can't, I'm right there. And so I went to school in Alberg, primary and junior high. I'm very much a country boy, and I'm proud to say that. I remember when I was in grade school, half the kids that were picked up on farms. It's sad to see how those farms gone. So it's so nice to drive by a farm, or I know people aren't going to believe I'm saying this, or to smell manure. It means that people are still farming. But I got to tell you, I was one of those kids that I really enjoyed learning. And I know the kids are going to think I'm a fossil if I say this, but we didn't have internet back then. So I didn't surf the internet, but what I did do is I surfed encyclopedias. I loved sitting down, and I got teased by my siblings about that. But I love sitting down, and by the way, for the younger ones here, if you don't know what an encyclopedia looks like, there you go. But I used to sit and read them like for hours, and I would kind of travel in my mind because, as I said, I was, somewhat isolated. My parents traveled, but they didn't take us. Go figure, I think they needed a break. But there was an event that happened that really, I think, was a turning point for me. And it was when I was in 8th grade. My 3 older brothers had already gone off to high school, and there was a first calf heifer having a hard time with delivery. And my dad was calling the vet, but he thought he needed an extra hand. And he said, you can stay home from school today. And at first I was like, I don't want to stay home from school. But he said, I really need your help. And what I got to do actually is, watch this veterinarian perform a cesarean. And I found it really intriguing, not just because he was doing that, but the fact that he knew how to do it, what he needed to do to hopefully have not only the mother, the cow, survive, but the calf too. And that made me think, I want to know more. I want to know all the organs in the human body and how they function and so forth. And like most islanders, as you know, we don't have a high school there, so we all go off the island, also known as the Rock. For me, I had 3 choices, and I chose MVU. Probably because my sister was a teacher, my brother was a senior, my sister was a junior, and I had a brother that was a sophomore. So it was certainly kind of familiar territory. And by the way, that's what the school looked like when I went there. I know it's changed a little bit on the outside. So I followed a college prep curriculum while I was there, and I would attribute my ongoing interest in the sciences really to a biology teacher I had. I remember when I was a sophomore, she kicked me out of the class a lot. Her name was Miss Catherine Brown, because I talked too much. And sometimes she'd just do that, and I knew what it meant. But I took advanced biology with her, and she was one of those teachers that challenged you. I love school, like I said, but she made me work harder than I normally would. And we spent in advanced biology a long period dissecting cats. And again, I just thought that was really cool and intriguing. And, really, again, made me think science is really what I want to pursue. Where do I go to college? And at the time, there was 4 of us that were going to be in college. I had a brother that had a gap year. And so we all paid our own way, at least the first 7 did. And I was included in that group. So I wanted to go to UVM, and I'd actually been accepted, but I actually couldn't come up with enough money. And believe it or not, I ended up being able to go to an out-of-state school for a less expensive price. And I was familiar with SUNY Plattsburgh because my brother was a chemistry major there. So again, kind of some comfort. And I will say that I felt that MVU had really prepared me well for a college education in the sciences. But my sophomore year, I started thinking, this isn't going to last forever. What am I going to do? And when I get out of college, and so at that time, I thought, well, maybe I'm interested to go to medical school. I was really interested in anatomy, comparative anatomy, and physiology. So I said, I ought to do an exchange program where I go to a medical school, a college where they have a medical school. And I thought I wanted to go to McGill. Montreal was one of the few cities I visited as a young kid, and I thought it was really neat. It was a city and, exciting. And so I applied for an exchange program to go to McGill, and I was accepted, and I spent a year there. And I had a really good time and learned a lot. But I got to tell you, that was when I realized I didn't want to go to medical school. That I took a class in biochemical genetics and made me realize I was really interested in maybe research. So after I graduated from undergrad, I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? And that's all I had done so far is go to school. And, so I was thinking, what's my strengths? What do I enjoy? Well, I enjoyed learning. I usually did pretty well in my classes. So I said, okay, I'll go back to college, go into a graduate program. What school? Where do I want to go? And that's where I thought, oh, that was fun to be in Montreal for a year. Maybe I'd like to go to another city. So I got accepted at Northeastern University in Boston, where I pursued a Master of Science in the Health Sciences. And my thesis was on MADS DNA. This was pre-genome project. I'm sure you've all heard of the Human Genome Project. So a typical thesis back then was isolation and characterization of a certain gene. And I worked with MADS DNA. I thought it was such a cute acronym I made up. It stands for Metabolically Active Detergent Soluble DNA. It was just, how the DNA behaved. But I thought, okay, this is where I'm probably going to stay. I mean, when you think of it, Boston is the mecca of biomedical research. And thought, okay, after I finish, this is where I'll stay and find a job here somewhere, or I'll go back into a PhD program. But I had fallen in love with a woman from Vermont, and she really didn't want to come to Boston. So I said, well, I'll go back and see what my opportunities are in Vermont. And I applied for 2 jobs, one with the state and one at the university. And I got to tell you, the one with the state, after the interview, I'm like, I got this. They're going to offer me the job. After the interview at UVM, I'm like, oh my God, that's out of my league. They're never going to give me that job. So of course, I got offered the job at UVM and not the job at the state of Vermont. And that's what I call my first real job. Because I had actually worked, since I was a young kid on the farm, and then at 13 worked summer jobs. And I was really fortunate that I got hired into a laboratory by this guy, Dick Albertini, who is really an international leader in genetic toxicology. And what that is that he was interested in things in the environment that caused genetic damage. And what was that genetic damage, and how might you be able to mitigate it? He really gave me a lot of professional growth. And to me, I was just chatting with one of the faculty from the lab here today that my first national presentation, was really got me excited about continuing in this. And by the way, it was at a meeting called Environmental Mutation Society, and it was in Cleveland. And at first I thought, they're sending me to this because no one else wants to go to Cleveland. But I went. It's a nice town, by the way. And I was so scared about giving my first presentation, but it actually went well. And I got a lot of questions after, and a lot of people that stayed around and talked with me, and it was really very motivating. And so I went on to do many different projects, and I don't have the time to describe them, but I just want to give you some example of some of the things I studied when I was in that laboratory and published. And one was on radon. Who here has heard of radon? Raise your hand. Good, because you should in Vermont. And it's a radioisotope that comes from the natural decay of our uranium core. People usually think of it as a problem more in states like Colorado. They're big mining states. Actually, to sell your house in Colorado, you have to have it radon tested before you do. But it's an issue in Vermont. And because it's an issue in Vermont, actually the state health department offers free long-term radon tests. So if you're interested, you can get one for free. Another project I worked on was one on the genetic effects of malathion. And I grew up on a farm, and it was very common to spray pesticides on your crops. And I noticed they sell this at Lowe's or Home Depot, and it says low toxicity. Yeah, it's low toxicity, but it's toxic. And we did find that at certain levels of it, that it caused this very specific genetic damage. Why is that important? What it allowed us to do was to develop a test for people that were potentially exposed to see if the exposure had an effect. And I just mentioned Chernobyl. I realize this is probably the students here have never heard of Chernobyl, but there was a horrible, accident there with their nuclear plant, and I happened to work for a guy that had connections everywhere, and we were able to get samples from Chernobyl from the workers that had been there being exposed. And so while I was working in Dick's lab, he gave me this project where he wanted me to sequence 3,000 samples. And when I say sequence, I mean determine the DNA sequence, every letter of those 4 letters that are the building blocks of DNA. And the way we did that back then was with radioisotope, and I had to suit up, I had to wear double gloves, I had to wear a face shield so that I wasn't exposing. And I'm like, I don't want to do this and it just so happens that a faculty member at UVM had just gotten the first automated DNA sequencer in the state and really in the region. And I went over and asked him if I could use it for this project, and he had said no one can use it, only my lab. But he let me on, and I used it. And like a typical curious young person, you want to kick the tires, lift open the hood, see what you can do with this technology. And in doing so, I had no idea that I had become the resident expert on campus on this technology. And I got to tell you, during the time when genomics was really becoming big with the Human Genome Project, this was a great skill set to have. And it's what springboarded me into my next adventure in STEM. And it was the Cancer Center had wanted to start a new laboratory that would offer this kind of support for all the investigators. And they came to me and asked me if I would be willing to start it. And I said, why not? And that was really the beginning of a trajectory that I never could have imagined in my life. And so in 2001, when the Vermont Genetics Network was formed, they asked me to join that group, and then they asked me to start another laboratory. And this laboratory is called Microarray Facility. But I don't know if anyone has ever heard of these DNA gene chips. I'm holding one right now. And I'm actually going to get it, you can pass it around if you want. But after the Human Genome Project was done, say with humans, found 20,000 plus genes, now they could put that all on this little tiny wafer that's in that cartridge. And you could put a sample in there, and you could determine every gene that was on, every gene that was off. And really, this was the start of personalized medicine that was going on here in the country. And so that's where I'd like to talk about next. And this woman right here, her name is Giselle Scholler, is an incredible lady. She's a pediatric oncologist. So she's a woman who sees young patients that have cancer. And that's one of her patients right there. And she happened to be in the neighboring lab. So we started collaborating and talking a lot. But something happened to her that I just think this is cool. And I always tell students, because it's not what you typically think how science occurs. People think you work at the bench, you make a discovery, you bring it into the hospital or the clinic, and then, you know, into the community and, you know, ameliorate disease. But she was seeing all the neuroblastoma patients. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that cancer. It's horrible. It's a cancer of your nerve cells. And most of these kids don't survive. At least not that I know of. And so they relapse and, you know, they survive for a while, but eventually succumb. She had a patient who was in a palliative care mode, kind of unfortunately at the end of her life. And her family had taken a trip and while she was gone got really sick. Bottom line is the kid caught a parasite while she was out with her family. I'm speculating they took a vacation thinking last as the intact family, came back to Dr. Scholler and found out she's got a parasite characterized as Chagas disease. Maybe you've heard of that. And so there's a drug, Nirfitomox, that you give them and it clears the parasite. Takes a while, so you take the drug for a while. And the amazing thing, and this is where I say, she was being a good scientist. You observe, you record, and you communicate it back to the community. And what she saw was, after giving this drug, this patient's tumors started shrinking. Followed it for a little longer, the tumors continued to shrink, and she said, hey, there might be something here. In parallel, what was going on is this he was a wealthy hedge accountant on Wall Street. Son was dying of neuroblastoma, and he took a personal leave of absence and said, I want to save my kid. And he started, you know, going through all the literature that was out there, and he came across this article that Giselle wrote, Dr. Scholler wrote, that said, I saw this kid, had neuroblastoma, had a parasite, gave this drug, the tumor shrunk. He said, that might save my kid. And that's where the Sam and Penelope Foundation started, that funded a clinical drug trial. And it was so amazing that I got to be a small part of that. We were the laboratory that was characterizing the patients first before they got the drug. And then we would take another profile with these gene chips of all that was going on. And you know, unfortunately, cancer really affects us all. And maybe there's people in the audience that, you know, maybe are survivors themselves or dealing with it. And you know that oftentimes chemotherapy is a cocktail of drugs. It's not just one drug. So in this case, she would give the drug, and then we would take a snapshot of the genomic profile, or more technically, it's called the transcriptional profile. And that would then tell her where she needed to make tweaks, what genes weren't changing that should be changing. On a very simplistic level, if you've ever heard of a tumor suppressor gene, well, you want that turned on, because what does it do? It suppresses tumors. So that's just an example of how she would customize the cocktails back for the patients. And when I talk about this with the students a lot, they say, so the kids survive? And I said, no, but they lived about 1.5 to 3 years longer. And I'm a parent, and to have your kid that much longer is pretty damn special. So I think that, you know, she's, unfortunately, she's so successful. Someone wrote her a bigger check than UVM, and she's now at the Van Andel Institute continuing this work. The other thing that I'm so awestruck by what you can do in the sciences now. Who here has heard of gene engineering or gene therapy? Raise your hand. Okay, everyone's heard of it, but it really was not very precise until just recently in 2013. These two ladies, Jennifer Duodna and Emmanuelle Charpentier, found a way to very precisely change genes in ways that would be positive for individuals. This was a game changer. And so everyone started using this in their laboratory. And really what it was is it was found, it's a natural process in bacteria. It's the way that they fight viruses that try to integrate into their genome. And it'll go in and just cut them out and say, no, you're not allowed here. So, you know, like science, you build on what other people have learned. So I thought I wanted to just kind of walk you through this because I think this is so cool. And let me tell you, you're going to hear more about it. CRISPR-Cas9. That's what it is. So I think everyone's heard of editing, right? You probably have all worked with, you know, Microsoft Word. And, you know, you can cut out words, you can paste in words, you can change the letters of words. Well, we can do the same thing on a gene level. So we can knock out or delete, or you can say cut out a gene. Here's an example where, I don't know if anyone here has heard of the gene, or it's actually a hormone, leptin. Leptin is the, you know, what tells you you're full. So if you've knocked that out, you can see on the right what happens. The mouse will just keep eating and eating and eating. Or you can put in a transgene, insert something in. And this is a green fluorescent protein that was put into these mice. Or you can knock it in. You can replace it with another gene. So they took the green fluorescent protein and they put it in where the rhodopsin gene was. Rhodopsin is what gives you the pigmentation in your retina. So like I say, this is incredible, and this is really going to be a game changer. And I think of this, the Berlin patient. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of him, but I'm sure everyone here has heard of HIV. This is a guy who had HIV. As happens with a lot of HIV patients, as they progress, he developed a cancer, AML, acute myeloid leukemia, and so he ended up having a stem cell transplant. And he happened to get a stem cell transplant from a very unique individual who had a mutation in a certain gene that we knew, or people knew, was involved with letting the virus into the T cells. And it's called CCR5. Bottom line is, that's when they said, okay, let's do some gene engineering. And back then, the hot techniques were called zinc finger nucleases and talons. But the unfortunate thing with doing gene editing with those methods, sure, they would replace that gene or do what you wanted, but they had side effects. They would also cause a mutation in some other gene or knock down another gene that's really important. So that's why CRISPR is so important, because it's the first time that we can do this in a very, very precise manner. So why would anyone want to pursue a career in STEM? I got to tell you, I've loved my job. I've been in it for over 30 years now. You know, 80% of the jobs over the next decade are going to require technology skills. And I think it was Tim that had already mentioned, you know, these occupations are growing much faster. So if you want a job after you get out of college, you might want to think of a STEM field or a STEM career. And it's less competition for the job because there's not enough people going in to STEM. And you're hearing about kids getting out of college not being able to find jobs. Well, go into STEM, you'll find a job. And what I like about this is the creativity that you're allowed, the innovation. And to me, that's really a great characteristic of a job. You know, it motivates me, wants me to go to work every day. But I feel like these also kind of give you that everyday critical thinking, because when you're in the sciences, you're always solving problems. So you learn that process of how you solve a problem, and that can be applied to many other, you know, situations in your life. If you enjoy learning, I always say people that are scientists go in that field because they enjoy learning, because it's constantly changing. I couldn't do my job today if I stopped learning 30 years ago. You know, it is more money, usually, although I want to say, you know, academia, industry, there are some differences there. But in my case, too, one of the things is I get to travel a lot. I get invited to speak, and I'm never going to say no if I'm available. And, you know, this is just some statistics that I found where college students in a STEM program, about 20% of them know in middle school that that's what they want to pursue, and then about 80% in high school. So if we can, motivate them at a young age and start thinking about this, I think that's a good thing for us and for them. So I know there's some middle school students in this group, and I am never going to say no to a student that wants to come into my lab. And I just want to share quickly the story of Wynn. You can see her on the left. She's someone from Moortown who emailed me saying, what's out there for kids my age? And I sent her a list of all these things, but I said, hey, I'm going to be hosting Harwood Union High School, which is her region, for a science program, and if you want to come to my lab, I'll teach you how to help deliver this science program with me. She came and spent a couple weeks in my lab, and here she was, a middle school student, providing support for this laboratory and this science program delivery to high school students. Matter of fact, her sister was in that class, so it was kind of interesting. And then you can see some other, kids that I've worked with. So what is, the opportunities that a STEM career provide me? Country boy growing up in Albert that went to school in Grand Isle County and Franklin County. Well, like I said, it's really allowed me to travel around the world, and that's what I dreamed of as a kid when I was surfing encyclopedias. Here's a picture of me in a crater outside Reykjavik, Iceland. This is in Hawaii actually I bring my wife sometimes, with also some colleagues where we had organized a workshop at this conference. I think you can tell Holland, Sweden, Spain, and other places around the country. But this last picture I'd like to talk a little bit more about. And that's myself with Nathan Cady. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of him, but Nathan Cady grew up in Grand Isle. I used to babysit him. I worked for his parents as a park ranger when I was in the summer in college. And he is now a nanobiotechnologist at Albany School of Nanotechnology and Engineering. And the guy is incredible. And I heard about 3D printing. This is the guy, one of the pioneers about 3D printing of tissue. And it was so cool that we have come full circle, that now we're interacting again, but in a different context. It's not that I'm, giving him a bottle or something. And matter of fact, this happens to be a picture of us in Palm Springs, California, where I was organizing a meeting and I asked him to be one of our keynote speakers, and he was incredible. So what are the other opportunities that a STEM career has provided me? A lot of friends and a lot of colleagues. And these colleagues, they're your best resources. They're, in the sciences, we love sharing our solutions. We also love sharing our problems, and we collectively solve them. It's given me so much growth. I've been on association boards, on industry boards, and so forth, and the founding member. But one of the things that's really excited me was being able to, I never thought I wanted to teach per se, it was research. But we got this grant with Judy Van Houten and the Vermont Genetics Network that the goals were to create a culture of research throughout the state and then create a pipeline of students going into the biomedical career. So we said, let's develop some biotechnology courses and go teach it at all the colleges that were receptive in Vermont. And by the way, I just spent a couple months at Landmark College. I don't know if you've ever heard of that in Putney. I've actually taught at colleges that I never knew existed in Vermont. And so it was really kind of cool. I said that we provide science programs to high schools and middle schools, and how cool is that to interact. And by the way, I want to say that, I forgot to say that when I was teaching these courses at the college, that was also a great resource for me to hire people. And I know Megan Rowley, who teaches at MVU, she's an old employee of mine. She actually was an old student of mine at St. Michael's, and when she graduated, and I had a position, I said, would you come join us? And MVU is very lucky to have her. She's an incredible person. But the other thing I've really enjoyed is taking students in as interns. And I always take 2 high school students and an undergrad. And this year, the 2 students were from South Burlington, but the undergrad was from South Aero, Jet Kuhn. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Kuhn Memorials, but Jet's someone I actually knew. He played basketball with my son, so it was really nice to get to know them a little bit better. So now just a little bit of advice if you're thinking about a STEM career. One is, don't be afraid to explore the possibilities. And, I think the best thing is try it. The old saying, try it, you'll like it. If you don't like it, move on to something else. But, get some experience. And it depends on how much time you're willing to give. It could be just going in and shadowing someone for a half day or a day, or actually volunteering in the lab for a distinct period, or doing an internship. There's lots of ways you can do it. But at least talk to the professionals in the field, get some feedback from them. And it's in today's world, getting a cross-disciplinary education is always going to be helpful in your future. So I guess one of the messages I want to say is, you can do it too. It's, we've come from the same, roots. I've gone to the same schools you have. I say think big. If it excites you, explore it and look into it more. And then last, I just want to share with you this picture. And it's a picture I usually end my talks with when I'm outside of Vermont, but I thought I would share it with you guys anyways because it allows me to show you where my labs are, but also why we live here in Vermont. I mean, look at that. The lake, the mountains, and who knows what my next STEM adventure might be. I say I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but I enjoy what I'm doing now. And that's really important because you're going to spend more of your waking hours at your job than anywhere else. So if you don't like it, it's not going to be fun. So have fun. And I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity, for allowing me to hopefully generate some enthusiasm to the students to go into STEM careers.
It's an honor to have you, and as I've traveled around myself, I would encourage you. There's always a connection with Vermonters. If you're on the West Coast and you run into someone from Vermont, you've got something in common, and you can really nail it and hit it off well. When you, to that point, when you run into someone from Franklin County or Grand Isle, that connection is that much greater, and you really connect. And it's important to know to use your connections as you're in the working environment and take advantage of connections like Tim. I just had two clarifications, Tim. So your travel has gone more than just Cleveland, right? Okay. And are you still reading the encyclopedia?
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. Thank you very much, Tim. It's great to have you. It's a pleasure. One more hand for Tim. So we'd like to wrap up tonight's event by the presentation of we have 2 awards to present. One new award this year is the Rising Star Award, and then we have the Mary S. Babcock Teacher of the Year Award. And to present the Rising Star Award, I'd like to ask Elena Westcomb to come up. And as I had said before, Elena was Miss Vermont in 2015. She's been a valuable addition to our board, and it's been a great experience to have Elena with us. I'll turn it over to.
Well, hello. Okay, so I'm here to present a Rising Star Award, and this is new this year, and it's something we decided to give to a teacher who is up and coming in the STEM fields, and that may be you have just started in teaching STEM, or you are a brand new teacher. You don't have to be a brand new teacher. You could have been teaching for a long time, but just started to transition into teaching STEM. And I think I was chosen to give this award because I've actually had some contact with this teacher before. When I was Miss Vermont, I did my science experiment across the state. What that meant is I lugged around this big box of chemicals everywhere I went, and I sometimes stained floors and ceilings with iodine. And it was terrible, but students loved it. And there was a teacher that allowed me to come into her Bakersfield when she was teaching at Bakersfield, come into her Bakersfield school, come into her classroom, and make a complete disaster of the floor. It was a white floor, it was stained yellow. I hope they redid the floor, but I'm not really sure. So I am presenting this award to Samantha Cantel for being an up-and-coming teacher in the STEM field and for really showing students how fun science, technology, engineering, and math can be, but also how applicable it is to their everyday life. That means crossing their spheros from one class to the next, from science to math, using it across every subject she teaches. And that's so important, is keeping those kids involved and engaged and excited in everything that they're doing. So, Sam, want to come up here? And we for the left present the Rising Star Award to Samantha, who's been helping really teacher and encouraging her students to do so much for all of them. So thank you.
They did re-wax the floor.
Perfect. They did re-wax the floor. It's great.
Want to say anything, Tim?
They want you to
I was more about
Trying to get out of here. You're not going to see me.
You have the option. It's okay. It's okay. So thank you. So everybody, she's great.
I get accused all the time at home for being a photo bomber, and I didn't expect it. I thought they were all done. So the next award is one that we're very proud to present on a yearly basis, and that's a Mary S. Babcock Teacher of the Year Award. And to set the scene for that, I'm going to ask Lisa McDonald, STEM Challenge Initiative Board member, to come up and talk about Mary Babcock.
Thank you, Tim. Mrs. Babcock, we give an award in her name because she gave our STEM SCI a wonderful donation. And her niece and husband are here tonight. And when Mrs. Babcock, who was an elementary teacher in Derby in Swanton for many years, and she was the first person I met when we moved to Swanton. My husband and I came to Swanton 37 years ago, and I went into the elementary school to introduce myself. And out came Mrs. B from second grade. She wanted to know who I was. She was absolutely engaging. Mrs. B is also the person who, when she gave the donation, it was such an honor for her to give the money, that she wanted her money that she had earned as being a teacher. She spoke of earning a few dollars when she started teaching a week. But she wanted children to continue to learn, and that technology was something that they needed to learn. And it was just a wonderful, generous thing. And so we honor Mrs. B by selecting a teacher that embodies the spirit of giving so generously, and that it's so important to our young children. And I think in listening to your talk, Tim, and I think about Mrs. B, and I think about having, when I moved to Swanton, I could not believe it was north of St. Albans. But with time, an expression that comes to me is bloom where you're planted. And there's wonderful opportunity here. And I think you did a wonderful presentation tonight. And I just imagine what it would have been like to have an opportunity to present and to have your voice and to know that you can reach for the top because you started, you're on your way. It's wonderful. And now I'd like to present Steve McKenzie, an outstanding teacher to present the Mary Babcock Award.
The 2017 recipient of the Mary Babcock Award is currently the Technology Integrationist and STEM Fair Coordinator at MVU. He was a classroom teacher for 29 or so years, and science teacher, and most of that time was 8th grade. He's a lifelong learner and tinkerer. He's always been a creative force in the classroom by stimulating his students into enjoying what they were learning about by doing many hands-on projects. Most of his career, he has taught science, but then became a team leader and now is a certified technology integrationist. He has been the engineer of the opening of the new Makerspace Lab at MVU so that he could support reluctant teachers into bringing their students in for even more hands-on activities. He has always planned lessons that feature students doing science rather than reading about it. His classroom is always a mess, a pleasant kind of a mess. Student projects scattered all over, different process of being done, and materials for students to work with. He is the science and math fair go-to guy. He visits classrooms, motivates and organizes students, and supports them and teachers through the science fair process and paperwork. He organizes the judges, the scoring, etc. We had over 120 science fair projects this year, and the project has grown by leaps and bounds for the last 2 years. He has brought over 20 students to Norwich for the State Science Fair for the past 2 years. His new position as tech integrationist has availed himself to many more students than he could have when he was a classroom teacher. A most recent example would be how he figured out to digitize the science fair scoring system for the volunteer judges to streamline the process of evaluating student work for multiple judges. He works with students to utilize a 3D printer, and he oversees in the makerspace to help students with their innovations and inventions. I have never seen him sit back and allow others to solve a problem without adding his 2 cents and his innovation and his ideas. Usually his solution is to bring in his love of allowing technology to do the heavy lifting to solve the problem whenever possible. This year, for example, he oversees phasing in the learning management software to host a student's portfolio of work, get the makerspace learning, teaching a software management class, and to teach technology course to teachers, and host a hugely successful science fair to boot. He is an instructor and a go-to guy for all teachers and students. And this year I'd like to announce the award to Richard Ballard, and I'd like to have him come up here and accept a nice gift from appreciative ex-science teacher to another science teacher.
Photobomb. Yeah, photobomb.
Let's see if we work.
Super. I'm good. he said more than enough. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Rich. I'd like to give a plug for the science fair as well. I've been fortunate enough to be a judge over the last few years, and it's quite the event. If you haven't been, I would encourage you to make time in your schedule to show up. I know Rich is always looking for judges. You don't have to have the science background. I'm a prime example of that. But it's a great event. You see some outstanding work. It's just unbelievable the level of projects that you see at the science fair. Rich and your team, Jim and Steve and others, be commended for all the work you put into it, so thank you. Once again, that pretty much wraps up our agenda for the evening. I'd like to thank you all for coming. I would encourage you to come back next year, usually on the second Thursday of the month. I would encourage you to spread the word. We hope to have more than 100 next year. We want to showcase this every year, showcase our students, showcase our graduates and professionals who have succeeded in the outside world. And with your help, we can do that. It's open to the public. There's no cost. So if you can share that, get the word out, we want to make this an even bigger event than what it is today. So thank you all for coming. We greatly appreciate you taking the time, and we look forward to having you next year. Thank you.